Welcome to Under the Fig Tree podcast. In today's episode, hosts Reverend Micah Glenn and Reverend Dr. Ben Haupt talk theology and life as they meditate under the fig tree.
What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Under the Fig Tree podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Micah Glenn, Director of Recruitment here at Concordia Seminary, and joined by this is the last time I'm going to say new co-host, and so this is like episode 5 or 6, right? As the co-host,
feels like more.
Well, I don't know how to take that, but Kati Gaschler, our recruitment coordinator.
Yes.
And how are you today?
Good. Things are getting busy here. There's lots of visits coming up, which is good.
It's one of those scenarios where we always talk about the enrollment cycle, right? And so we're almost to a new year for the application, and there's different seasons, but we work at a school, but our lulls are very short. And so you have to maximize the lulls, go on vacation, because the year always picks up quickly with events that we have in-house and then things that we travel to. And so Kati is in 6 months in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a seasoned pro.
Yeah.
And she understands.
Yeah, I got it down. It's fine.
Yeah. We're now expecting her to just
take over the department.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
Just run with the show.
Yeah.
Today we have a very special guest, Justin Hilton, first-year seminarian. How are you today?
I'm excellent, thank you.
So you can lean forward to speak into the mic, or you could just bring it back to you. I always go back and forth, but yeah, make sure you're comfortable. Well, welcome to the podcast. How are things going so far in your first year and life as a future pastor?
It's a dream. It's great. It's going great. This is the second semester. It feels like we're getting in a groove, in a good figuring out how the rhythm of everything goes. I have a job, and I kind of know what to expect more this semester than I did first semester. And our family's getting settled in, and feeling comfortable and feeling like this is more home. After Christmas, it felt like coming back to St. Louis and back to the seminary campus. It felt like, this really does feel like home now. In a way that nothing else does. So it's great.
Well, speaking of your family, I brought a visual aid because you guys are on the front of the Seminary Magazine. Look at that. And I believe anyone who wants to get this magazine can. So if you don't get it, I think you can just email magazine@csl.edu and get our magazine. But you guys are on the front. It's so cute. And your faces are all over campus because of this. But yeah, there's a nice story about you guys in there. But do you have questions to start? Because I have some that are formulating.
Formulating, but not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, you mentioned your family. So, Justin, if you don't mind, we'll get to our listeners know that there's a question about how you got here. But before we jump right into that one, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your family, background, what you were doing before you got here.
You can use this if you want to.
If you don't mind.
Visual aid.
Yep. There they are.
Let's see. So there's our family. There's me, my wife Grace, and our 2 kids, Ira and Epiphany. And Epiphany's 3 and Ira's 1. And before coming here, we lived in Seoul, South Korea for 9 years. And let's see, I am American, and Grace is Korean, but we both grew up outside of our respective countries. We were both missionary kids, so we grew up in West Africa on a hospital ship.
Okay.
So, and so our parents were both missionaries, or both of our parents were missionaries. My dad's a plumber, and my mom was the librarian on the ship. And Grace's dad is a Presbyterian pastor, and they're like a pastor missionary family. So So that's where we grew up. When we were young, Grace she's like 3.5 years younger than me. So on the ship, she was like, I was 10 and she was 7 whenever we first met. And we just totally ignored each other, because why would a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old like care about each other? So I just played Halo and played video games with her older brothers. And then later on, we ended up dating. Much later, off the ship, we reconnected at a friend's wedding. Our friends from the ship, 2 of our other friends from the ship, were also getting married, and so we reconnected there, and dated long distance. And I was living in Brooklyn, and she was living in Seoul, and yeah, then we ended up getting married in Brooklyn, and we had a little bit of a disagreement about if she was going to move to New York or if I was going to move to Seoul.
Sure.
And
She won?
I won.
Oh,
no,
you won.
I won.
Oh, okay.
Yes. She wanted to move to New York. I wanted to move to Seoul.
Oh,
She,
look at that.
You know,
okay.
yeah. She's lived outside outside of Korea a lot, and she, speaks perfect English.
Sure.
and better English than me. And and she, knew American culture, and I didn't know Korean culture. I didn't know Korean. And so we moved there. I won, because I was like, my kids are going to be half Korean. I don't want to, if they ask me questions about Korean culture and food, I don't want to be like, I don't know, ask your mom. So I won. And then we ended up staying much longer than we expected to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the same question that most everybody else in the world has. Explain this ship.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have never heard this before, and it is blowing my mind. If you don't mind walking us through, because I imagine like you're actually talking about a ship on water.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So not a spaceship.
Well, I didn't my mind didn't go to a spaceship, but like I didn't know if it was like a term for something else that was just like a colloquial thing that you just say. But we're talking about a boat on water where your parents and her parents were missionaries. Mm-hmm. Please explain that scenario.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's very weird. It's like the most interesting parts of my life were not my choice at all. So the ship was actually, so the organization is called Mercy Ships, and they still are going, but they were founded back in the 70s and related with this organization called Youth with a Mission, YWAM.
Okay.
And it's kind of interdenominational, non-denominational, but they bought this hospital ship, for $1 million, that was just sitting and rotting and was about to be scrapped. Huh. So it's this old Italian cruise liner that was just rusting away. And so they gathered a bunch of money and then renovated this old cruise liner and turned it into a hospital ship. And they had this dream to serve places in the world that didn't have any medical care. So like a lot of parts of Africa, parts of Asia, the Caribbean, there just aren't hospitals around.
Right.
And so what they would do is just bring the hospital to the places where there were no, where there's no medical care. So there'd be things like two big tumors growing out of people's faces, sure. Cleft palates, bowed legs, cataracts in people's eyes, things like that. And so they have a screening, and then everyone in the country who has one of these maladies, or they would come to the ship and get screened, and then they'd check and see who they could help and who they couldn't. Mm-hmm. And then they would, over the course of 7 months or so, they'd do a bunch of surgeries. And so Grace's dad's job on the ship was to help in the ward. He's kind of pastoring people and helping them as they're, healing from their healing from their surgery, and also getting ready to be reintegrated back into their communities, because a lot of times whenever these people have huge tumors growing out of their faces, people believe that it's a demon that is, created this, and that they're cursed. And so coming back into their communities is really tough, and because they've been outcasts. And so with us growing up on the ship, we went to school on the ship. There's like 400 people at a time on the ship and there's about 50 kids. So there's a school with kids from like 0 to 18, and we just went to school on the ship. And looking back on it, I think I didn't use opportunities that I could have so much. We're just in these, it's amazing. We were in Sierra Leone only 2 years after the Civil War stopped, and we're in Liberia like only a few years after the Civil War stopped. And we were in Benin and Senegal and Togo and the Gambia, and just so many places that I would be so excited to go to now and just visit and, try the food and go like meet people. And but really the thing that I cared about was like when my Zelda game is going to come in the mail. And
when you're a kid, and you live on a ship, I think it's understandable.
Yeah.
That is. I genuinely, I've never heard of this before.
No.
And I think it's so incredible. What a life.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's really, really amazing. I'm so thankful for it.
I feel that my dad did a lot of international stuff, and so I traveled a lot as a kid. I didn't care. I was a 12-year-old in Russia, and I don't want to be there. But now I would love to go back to a lot of those places.
Yeah.
So that's just normal, probably. So you guys met, you got married, you moved to Seoul.
Mm-hmm.
When did your process start for coming here? Because you weren't always Lutheran, correct?
Correct.
So that was part of that process.
Mm-hmm. Our process for getting here was, let's see, we had so we weren't always Lutheran. It's kind of tied up with it. But we actually, on the ship, we didn't really have a church. Like, looking back on it, being a missionary kid, we were in a very like Christian environment. Mm-hmm. Everyone on the ship was Christian from many different denominations, but as far as there's not church on the ship, like there's no Sunday service on the ship. There's some chaplains, but they didn't have a very big role at all. Like if you didn't seek them out, then you wouldn't really know that they're there. And we were encouraged to get off the ship on Sundays. And if you want to go to a church, then go to and visit a local congregation, which I think is cool. But the effect of that was that we didn't really have pastors in our lives. We didn't have like a worship, regular worship. Really. Oh no, on Thursdays there was a community meeting, but still, I don't feel like I was very churched as a kid actually, and didn't really have pastors who played any role in my life really. And so when we were in Korea, Grace and I were going to a church there, and it just felt like there was a lot of pastoring that didn't happen at that church. And I didn't recognize it as that, but just naturally, I just noticed people are in the congregation. There were a lot of new people coming, and I just noticed people falling through the cracks, and you'd be like, oh, do you want to get breakfast, or do you want to hang out, or invite people over to our house? And it seemed like people really appreciated that. And looking back on that, I guess that's like discipleship, but I didn't even think of it like that. And a couple of people were like, oh, Justin, you should be our lay pastor, ha ha ha, or something like that. And I was like, I remember thinking, man, if I just wish that I had more time. Like, I wish that I could take people out for breakfast, and we should have someone on staff who, like, we just pay full time, or like if you could only have like a person in the church who just does that full time, just like takes care of people, is such a good idea. And then I was like, that's what pastors do. Like that was the first time that it clicked for me.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, that's what that is. Wow, what a privilege, and how awesome that wow. And so that was when I kind of realized, oh, that's what the role of a pastor is, part of it. And so but being non-denominational, I always felt like you have to be like a really enterprising person, or in the non-denominational structure, if you want to go to seminary, you just have to pick a seminary and then apply, or many seminaries and apply, and then whichever you get into, choose between them, and then you can, whichever you get accepted to, you can go there, get your piece of paper, and then you can send out your resume to all these random churches.
Right.
And I'm just not that much of a go-getter, and I don't have that much charisma to plant my own church or something like that. I guess that's the other option.
Sure.
So, I always just felt confused by what would be demanded of you, doing that. And so once we became Lutheran, it was like, oh, there's a whole system for this. They have a whole synod set up. This is great.
Yeah.
Like there's seminaries. They, I guess you can choose between them, but
Yes, you can.
There is some choice.
But you can. There's a whole system, and you just go through it, and it's all set up, and you could just have to trust that they know what's best, and they'll send you where they think that you'll fit best.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, what a relief. That's awesome. Okay. And so we talked about it, and kind of now we're here. So.
Sure.
I like that perspective, because I think I would imagine a lot of students get stressed out at the idea of, oh my gosh, they could send me anywhere. And you're just like, great, do it. Are you guys open to going anywhere? Are you wanting to go back internationally, or?
We're open to anything, anything, whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know. People always ask, so are you going back to your church in Korea, or are you going back to Korea? And we're like, you can end up in a cornfield in Iowa for the rest of our lives.
Nice.
And, who knows?
It's also, I mean, some people have an idea when they get here, but in your second semester of your first year, I mean, I imagine you have summer Hebrew, and then another year of seminary, and then a vicarage. There's a lot of time between now and call day before you begin to worry about it. And then there has to be a call available. And so when I'm talking to guys, especially in the recruiting process, where you got a cart before the horse, the formation process is its own thing. But do that part, and like you said, we have the system to where your first call is, I think, in the best way, assigned to you, where you have faculty members watching you grow over 4 years, and you have the council of presidents with the calls that they have available, especially ones that are requesting candidates from the seminaries, and then you'll be placed somewhere along with prayer and consideration of the Holy Spirit. And first call is a beautiful thing. It's such a great learning experience where we give you some tools and tell you to swim, kid, but you'll be fine.
Yep.
And there's so many different things. Like, man, again, we don't have to revisit the ship again, but I just imagine that life experience, because how old were you when your parents did that?
10 till 17 about.
So very formative years of your life, where you're growing up in that environment. You and Grace reconnect, you get married, and then you live in Seoul. I mean, in a different context. I was blessed to be able to live in England for a year. My wife Dorothy's from England. And I had visited, but it's the same thing where, like, understanding a different culture that your kids are being born into, so that Dorothy doesn't have to hide or try to mask her Britishness, because I don't know anything about it. It's really clever. Yeah, because our kids are dual citizens, and we like to keep that in front of them. Well, Justin, you said now you guys have been here, you're settled, and you said you came back to St. Louis, so I imagine maybe you went to go visit family stateside, or did you guys leave and go back abroad?
It's a little expensive. We went to New Hampshire. My family lives in New Hampshire.
Got
now,
it.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're grateful that now St. Louis is becoming home.
Yeah.
So you're in your first year. Big cultural change, at least from where you were. You grew up in the States, and like you said, Grace was able to live in some different places again. Formative years on a ship off the coast of West Africa. And the ship moves, which is this concept is blowing my mind. I don't know how we didn't know this before this episode, but
Can we do this? Can someone ask President Harrison
if we could
we can do this?
I'm
Put the seminary
put the
on a
seminary
ship?
on a cruise ship.
Oh,
I'd
man.
be
That's
okay
an
for
idea.
that.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I am all right with that. I don't know how logistically it works apparently, and so it's not such a big deal. So now that you're in classes, you're back for another semester. We kind of asked this a little bit, but for our viewers, because you're a first year student, I don't know the last time we had a first year student on.
The last episode.
Yeah, it was Dan. Right, it was
Yeah.
Dan. But he was a DCE first, so it's not quite the same feeling, right?
Sure.
Because I imagine you didn't study theology in your undergraduate program. So yeah, walk us through what did you study in your undergraduate program, and help some listeners understand the transition from doing something else to this, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I studied history at Brooklyn College. So,
Okay. What
Yeah.
kind of history? I mean, that's a broad topic. Well, I guess in
Yeah.
your undergraduate, you don't necessarily.
they didn't make
Specialized.
us focus.
Okay.
So I just did whatever classes sounded interesting. But
Yep.
so I did that, and then we just moved to Korea, and then whenever we're living in Korea, I just tutored English.
Right.
And so as an I had this tutor or English tutoring business where I mostly tutored business people.
Yep.
So like Samsung and LG and Hyundai, they need their people to be able to speak English well, and so I would just do usually one-on-one classes with these executives or whatever, and just travel around the city and do that. And so that job, I think, prepared me in specific ways. Like I wasn't expecting it to, but I got good at just making people feel comfortable whenever they're, especially because speaking in a like second language, you just are more on edge and more nervous, and just like helping people to feel comfortable was important. And then just like talking to people, it was crazy doing that job. Like the classes without fail, they always started the student that I was teaching would say, like, we'd get introduced and have our first class, and he'd bring this big book of English conversation, dialogues, and he's like, we're gonna do 2 chapters of this every week.
Sure.
And then after and we do these business negotiation phrases, and working on all these different business words, and then after like 4 or 5 classes, he'd be like, let's just talk, let's just chat, I'm tired from work.
Sure.
And it was crazy. Just I really developed good friendships through that. Actually, one student I taught for 6 years, and just the things that people tell you, like it just taught me that people are desperate to have someone listen to them, and that if you just are there and you're open and just attentive, then people will tell you the most incredible things. And it was great. It was really I felt more like a therapist than a English teacher a lot of the times, but
Sure.
yeah. And yeah. So there was that. And then also I taught, I helped like college kids or high school kids with their English homework a lot as well. So, but yeah, as far as the transition of Brooklyn College to there's no really like through line with studying history, but I just always liked theology and liked philosophy and thinking about the meaning of life and stuff like that. And
you guys got here probably last June.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, we got here in June. So
arrived, and I imagine you got here one day, and then maybe the next day or 2 days after that, you were taking an intensive in Greek.
Yeah, it was the traumatic.
Yes. Box is not quite unpacked.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
It's a common experience for many of us that don't come in with the language. This
Just
totally is what it is. You got to hit the ground running.
Yeah. No, totally. It was, I definitely did hit the ground running, and Greek was really challenging. I'm so glad to have it out of the way.
Sure.
But got through it, and it's been great. And
now you're just looking forward to Hebrew.
Yeah. I think Hebrew, I don't want to be like haughty about it, but I've heard that it's easier, and I heard it's more vocabulary focused, so I'm not so worried. Like that's what I was okay. Like vocabulary was like good for me in Greek. It was mostly the grammar, and I heard that if it's more vocabulary focused, then I should be okay.
Yeah, morphologically, Greek is much more complex than Hebrew. And I did some tutoring for Greek, and guys always want to jump right to the vocabulary, and I was like, well, that's great, but this is what it looks like on your note card. It's probably not going to look that way in the text, and then depending on the word, it's not going to look anything like that in the text. And so learn how the language works and do vocabulary later. Hebrew is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You have to know the vocabulary. And I would like if you learn your verbs, which are these triliteral roots, a lot of things come off of that. Shafat is to judge. Mishpat is either judge or judgment. I think it's judgment. But anyway, but you get how if you learn those triliteral roots, the verbs, you probably know like 70% of the language, and then you just learn declensions and some
love declensions,
prefixes. If you learn
I don't even know what that is.
Pronoun prefixes, then Hebrew it is a more simple language. That being said, simple isn't always easier because again, it's right to left. The characters are much more foreign. And because it's a simple language, you have to decide in translation how are things being used. But you don't do that in Hebrew. You're just learning the basics of the language. So you'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be good. I love languages.
So easy, it sounds like.
I mean, it's just like anything. You show up, you pay attention, you're present, you do your best. Like I said, whenever I came across a guy who was really struggling on language, it was always because they'd study right after class, which is probably the worst time to study. Your brain is already melted. And then B, studying the wrong way. I would be like, okay, you get home. And then they would struggle with vocabulary, and they'd do that for 4 hours. Yikes. It's like, but okay, so you've done that, and you haven't even done the exercises that were assigned. But like, the exercises are built to help you learn the language. So just before you get to the vocabulary, because you'll always have a dictionary that you can use. Learn the language anyway.
Well, and I imagine your classmates will be your support.
I mean, you go through it together. It's like basic training, man. It is.
We're all in this together.
It is a thing. By the end of it's still 10 weeks, right? Probably. 3 hours a day.
Yeah,
in class, and then
and then homework.
Then many hours outside of class. It does matter. I still translate before I preach a text. I might not sit there and translate it like I would have to for class, but I go through the language for sure. It matters.
As a lay person, I love when someone brings out Greek or Hebrew in their sermon. I think it's interesting. different perspective. And
in a sermon, I try not to do like in the Greek, this is what it says. I just try to preach it that way.
Sure.
And
in a sermon, in a Bible study, whatever.
in a Bible study,
It's ripe for the picking for me.
in a Bible study, I think it's very different to say,
Yeah.
like, look at this Greek and like show them what it is. Because then you can show them and
Sure.
maybe somebody knows Greek, maybe they don't, but at least there's like there's conversation in a sermon when you're like showing off how much you know Greek and like, oh, the Greek word is this and it's this, and like it's just you don't have to do like the Greek says this, just preach it, man. Anyway, but that's just my opinion. If you do that,
Hot takes with Micah.
You're the pastor and you're the preacher. You get to decide what you want to do. Anyway.
I had questions. So you both lived in Seoul for 9 years, and Grace had never lived in the States before that?
No, she had lived in the States before.
Okay.
In Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there, coming here last June, was there any like culture shock?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
for both of us.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, how was, well, I imagine.
From
I
Seoul
don't know.
to St. Louis it's a special place in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the either hardest things, funniest things, or just...
Okay, there were 3 things that, especially since 9 years ago, that that I've noticed have changed in the last 9 years. One was Amazon Prime trucks everywhere.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Around the clock.
Yeah. Marijuana dispensaries. That's a
It-
huge.
It's crazy driving around town and
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
billboards. It is weird.
Yeah, totally. Man, and Tesla charging stations.
Oh,
Okay.
Around,
okay.
Yeah.
Or electric cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazon, yeah, especially it was getting there pre-pandemic, but especially post-pandemic, yeah, you just see Amazon everywhere, and then the Tesla thing as well, because more and more electric vehicles. Yeah, but driving around St. Louis and seeing billboards for dispensaries, it's I don't know if I'll ever get used to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just moved here too, and it wasn't legal in Indiana, and
Yeah.
now everywhere, which,
Well,
whatever.
Yeah.
life. Well, also, so I imagine, do you live on campus?
Mm-hmm.
And how is that life? Because you probably live over in the woods. What is that life for you over there like?
It's great. It actually reminds me of the ship.
Oh,
because
sure.
yeah, on the ship, it was just incredibly close and tight knit because you're stuck on a ship together all the time, and so the other kids on the ship were like brothers and sisters. You just go over to each other's cabins all the time, and just knock on the door and hang out, and everyone trusts each other. And
Sure.
it's very similar here. It's great. It's really a privilege to get to live here during this time, and it totally changes the just the feel of seminary. Like it's not there's because of the way that the system is set up, you just have to like go all in, and I was talking to at the basketball game recently, Covenant Seminary from the other team.
Right.
But they were like, oh yeah, I'm just taking a class at Covenant, like just to see how it is, and we'll see if I like keep on going. And I was just like, that is a totally different mindset and totally different approach to like the way that it is here. Like here, you're in a community and you're fully in, and you are like taken care of in that way. And yeah, there's kind of a camaraderie. It's not just like taking some classes at Concordia. It's like our whole life is here. So yeah.
So when I was a student, I never lived on campus. My first year before I was married, my parents' house is 8 miles north of here, so I lived with them, save money. And then my second year, when we were married, we lived in an apartment just off of campus. And then my last year, we had a dog, so we lived off campus again. But even when we lived off campus, so much of our life was still here. I would get here early in the morning, and I'd go home late in the afternoon. And when we lived in our apartment, it was just, Alamo, so 2 blocks away. We were essentially
Basically
on campus. Right,
yeah.
exactly. But now we do live on campus in faculty housing. And it's interesting you said it's a lot like the ship, because it's not exactly like a Marine Corps base. There's different things, but it's a lot like the Marine Corps base where I grew up until I was 11, just because of the community aspect where, neighbors looked out for neighbors' kids, even if you didn't know who the kid was. It's safe.
All the woodlings, I hear that they're called.
Yeah, exactly. And they multiply.
Yeah.
It is. When you say it's a complete blessing to be a part of this community. There are things like it, but then there's nothing quite like it, because on the military base, on the ship, you have common goals, but our common goal here is to share the gospel with the world. And so even that just takes on a different dynamic, because you and your classmates and wives are preparing for ministry, and we'd always like pretend like we practice on each other, but but also it's just, you're just becoming the thing that you came here to become. And in the process, when you see a classmate who's struggling and stuff like that, it just becomes a natural thing. So that, sure, you've never been a pastor after 4 years, but guys always, they worry about that. But it's like, there will be things that you still have to learn, but you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised on your vicars that I think there's like that month or two settling in, and then you're just there. And all the things that you were taught up to that moment, preparing you for vicars, makes sense. You come home and you digest it for your 4th year, and then you're back out. It makes it slightly strange for us. So a lot of the guys that started when I started, or at least the fall of 2020, are now getting ready for calls. And so I'm as a
They're so grown up.
As a called staff member, right? Yeah, I'm like now in the first class is on its way out, and it's just, you get to know people, you get to care about them, you learn about their family, you live together, and then they're off. It's just the nature of the job. But yeah, we're glad to have you, and because you were in Seoul, you were a special case for us. Because you're a member of the LCMS, but you're not stateside, so that was a whole process and ordeal that we don't have to.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, absolutely not. It's one of those things where
it's clearly worth it.
Absolutely, it's a
Look
complete
at this.
blessing. To where you just have to. You reach out to us, and we're like, "How can we make this work?" And we're just, it was, like I said, it was a blessing. It was one of those things where you were a regular conversation, you and your family. But the fact that it worked out and we were able to do it and get you all here, it was tremendous for us. Yeah. Again, we could have spent this entire episode on
Talking about the ship
alone. That is just such a maybe. Well, you're here. We got you around for a little while. Maybe we'll have you and Grace come back and we can just have a complete episode on life on a mission ship.
Yeah, you guys have pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
Can we? Let's go. Does the ship still exist?
Yeah.
Are they still using it?
Well, that ship was scrapped actually, but there are 2 others that are still going.
That is
Let's
remarkable.
see where it is, and we'll just go visit
This now I just have to bring this up to Dorothy. Now I know how I will retire. Anyway, well,
I just wanted to ask: was the food better in Korea than South Korea than it is here?
Yes.
That is exactly what I expected.
Yeah, it was.
That's
definitely.
fair.
But
you asked this question about England. Some things maybe, but
I'm not gonna guess that.
England.
they have a couple dishes, and I mean that genuinely. Everything else is imported into England.
Is their fish and chips better than ours?
Of course.
We kind of rock fried food though, so I can't imagine how it would be.
Since Dorothy's not here, I don't know. Like it's different.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying. So there's Sunday roast, which is just like a big
beef roast.
Huh?
Like a beef roast?
Well, so it's the meal, and so you could get roast beef, but there's chicken. You could do ham. It's England, so actually, not beef, but probably lamb would be more common. Is like there's a thing called a Yorkshire pudding, usually vegetables, often like peas and parsnips and potatoes. It's just like after church, you go somewhere, get a roast. It's nice. English breakfast is good, except I don't like beans on toast, mushrooms, or tomatoes, and I just took half the meal away.
Beans on toast?
It is vile anyway. And anybody from England, I don't know if we have any British listeners, but Dorothy might listen to this episode. It's not good. But there is there are some meals that are nice there. But because of colonialism, their Indian food is actually phenomenal in the UK. And it legit, we are big into curry, and there are some nice places around here, but it's not.
They saved
the
London's
same.
cuisine.
Yeah. Well, I think curry is like the national dish of England.
Curry.
Yeah,
That's fun.
like Indian curry.
Yeah.
Specifically. And I mean there's Indian restaurant everywhere.
Well, I haven't had a lot of Korean food, but what I have had I really like.
Mm-hmm.
But my brother-in-law brought home gochujang sauce.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, this is
Gochujang,
the best
that's right.
that I've ever had.
Indiana way. Gochujang.
I don't know. But anyway.
Gochujang.
Gochujang.
Oh, we'll see.
Got-
I said
That
yeah,
he
gochujang.
brought that home, and I was like, "This is so good! I love it! Like, buy this one. Where did you get it?" And he's like, "It's just the Schnucks brand."
Sure.
Oh man!
Lots
All
of
right.
kimchi. Oh, it's probably right for you, but I like kimchi. But my dad was deployed in Hawaii for a total of 6 years, so I ate a lot of Asian food growing up.
Ooh, like a Korean short rib. That is. I don't know how authentic that is, or if it's like an Americanized Korean thing, but that's really good.
Short ribs are a thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
For
good.
sure.
Delicious.
Well, cool. Well, we always get to a point where we have a million more questions, but we have to think about time and things like that. And like I said, we'd love to have you and Grace back on and
Talk about the ship.
I just, my head is spinning, and I'm sure everybody else is in. They want to hear more, but we always get to a point, and this is easily the most important part of the podcast, where we have a segment called "Right for the Picking" or "Leave It in the Tree," where we will ask you a series of completely subjective. Well, it's not questions. There are questions, but we'll list a bunch of subjective things that come to our minds at random times of the day. And if you like it, you just say it's right for the picking. If you don't like it, leave it on the tree. And feel free to tell our audience why you like it or why you don't like it. And we always see how this goes. Sometimes we spiral because of these. But I've gotten in the habit of asking the same one over and over because I think this is on par with the meaning of life. It's maybe the most philosophical question I can ask a single person in the world. And so it's right for the pick and leave it on the tree. Pineapple on pizza.
Ripe for the picking.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I mean, we're not judging you, Justin. We are not.
I just don't think it's the worst thing. I would never order it, but I don't think it's the worst.
I wouldn't say it's the worst thing, but it is not a good thing.
That's
I would say that. I would call it completely unnecessary. And I would say it is bad. It's not the worst thing. There are worse things in the world. But man, it is low for me personally. I don't care for it. Even in Hawaii. I understand it's like Hawaiian pizza, that's what we call it. Simply because of the pineapple. And ham, like pig is a big thing in Hawaii, but like it's just not very, like if it was Spam on a pizza, that'd be very Hawaiian, and that would be right for the picking for me. I love Spam.
Spam and pineapple, or just Spam? No
you might,
pineapple.
I mean, you might get pineapple on there, but Spam specifically
I
is
don't think I've ever had Spam.
Oh man, you are missing out on the world.
Are we
You
gonna do a
take it and
taste
like
test?
you do like
I had never
Spam-
had it before being in Korea either, but it's actually really good.
Spam musubi, you slice it and you fry it on either side and you wrap it
Oh.
in seaweed and rice. Oh man,
I would try it.
it's
Let's do a
delicious.
taste test.
And there's like this seasoning called furikake that you sprinkle on there. Yeah, it's good. Anyway, also, Katie, I think the more and more I ask it, now she's starting to go on to the right for the picking side.
I know. I'm being convinced.
But I'm still, I won't budge. But anyway.
Okay, let me. Right for the picking, or leave it on the tree. Instacart pickup?
I don't even know what that is.
Like you order your groceries
It's like
ahead
the
of time
Amazon
and then you pick them up?
Okay, got it.
Yeah, picking up, not delivery.
Oh.
Which would be a different question.
It
But
would
yeah,
be. Okay.
having them shop for you and then you just picking up your groceries from the...
Man, I've never done that.
So-
In Korea, we used to like do online grocery shopping a lot, and we don't do it here. I don't know. Maybe we haven't figured it out, or we're like skeptical of it or something. But I've never done, picking it up from the grocery store. That sounds. So I have left it on the tree. So leave it
Okay.
on the tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's right for the picking. I do it, but I have mixed feelings about it. Like I don't like going to the grocery store, so I'll do it. But
Oh, okay.
then it's like, well, this
But you're not the cooker of your house.
no.
Yeah.
So it's like, what am I really doing it for?
So I don't want to be this isn't hypocritical. It is leave it on the tree for me. When I because especially when it comes to produce and things like that.
Oh yeah.
I if it's an apple, the person picking your apples isn't going to look for bruises
They
and
do
stuff
not
like that.
care
Yeah,
at
exactly.
all.
They're just going to pick whatever one. So you're going to get like half bruised up, disgusting produce.
They're
And
gonna
that-
get rid of the bruised stuff with the Instacart pickup people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is exactly why that is leave it on the tree for me. But we do Blue Apron. We've just gotten to the point.
Oh yeah.
Just because of it's convenient. They ship you things that are different,
Pre-portioned. Yeah.
with the how you can make it. And Dorothy, who's not the home chef of our house, it was funny because the other day she was asking for help, and I'm like, the instructions of how to do it really are right there. And there's a French term, very important, if you're a home chef, is mise en place, and that's things in their place, and it's like you get the things ready to cook,
Yeah.
and then you start cooking them once they're all prepared, because then you can just cook. And she'll chop up something, put it in, and then try to do the next thing. It's like, that's burning.
Yeah. Yeah. That is
yeah.
how I
Oh,
cook.
and-
So I just don't do it.
And because I have there's serving, there's bowls, and there's things that once you chop it up, you put in there, that it's anyway.
Was
Maybe
that a
Blue
Blue
Apron.
Apron podcast ad just now?
Yeah, we are sponsored now
Yeah.
by Blue Apron.
One day, right? I keep throwing all these companies bones, but it is nice just because, again, for us, we like to be adventurous with food. All the recipes aren't great, but it gets us to try new things as well. So that's the other thing. And then these days with groceries, it's about the same price.
Yeah.
But Instacart, I had thought about it, but simply because of produce, I can't. Anyway, here we go. Right for the pick and leave it on the tree. Building sandcastles.
Ripe for the picking. I haven't done it in a long time, but
Probably since he was
it's
on a
always fun. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask, were you near the beach in Korea?
Yeah. In Korea, yeah, and in on the ship, but obviously
Yeah.
pretty close to the ocean on the ship. But in Korea, there's a beach everything is in Korea. It's awesome.
Sure.
Or
I
in
believe
Seoul,
it.
there's but yeah, we're like an hour drive from the ocean, so we could go to the beach pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Go hiking, be up there really easily, or go down to the river really easily is great. But, yeah.
Nice.
Anyway.
It's right for the picking. Growing up in Northeast Indiana, we have lots of lakes up there.
Okay.
They have beaches. There's sand.
Well, they have sand. Yep.
So yeah, we'd make sandcastles.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right for me. Yeah. I mean, so my dad was a Marine, so until I was 11, we grew up near real beaches. Now there are sandy spots near water in the Midwest, and I would do it. But yeah, building sandcastles is fun. What's digging around in the sand,
Yeah.
getting sunburnt, and forgetting to play in the water so you can build something cool. I'm for it.
Oh yeah. Maybe. Are there beaches here in Missouri?
Like the Ozarks, but
okay.
I grew up when we would visit family in Missouri, we'd go there. But these days, I would caution going in the water in Lake of the Ozarks. And I don't want to trigger anybody, but like, the years have not been kind of people, boats and things like that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, there's that whole show, like the Ozarks. I don't want to, I don't know. I don't know about that show and how accurate it is, but it might be.
I have not watched it.
It's not a.
I think I tried once. And I was like,
I watched same thing. I watched a little bit. It's not for me. But
Breaking
anyway.
Bad knockoff.
You say what?
It's a Breaking Bad knockoff.
That is exactly an accurate way of describing it, for sure.
That's fair. Right for the picking or leave it on the tree. Green tea matcha lattes. Hot or iced?
Oh, I can choose
Either
either
one.
one. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Right for the picking, both of those. Sounds
Okay.
great.
Have you had one?
So it is leave it on the tree for me. So green tea's fine. I actually haven't tried matcha. You know this about me now. Like it might be a little too green for me.
Oh, okay.
And I also don't like lattes. So
yeah. Well, it's not
different.
coffee. It's not coffee at all.
You'll like
well,
it.
so what I'm saying is I don't like the latte part of a latte, the
Like
steamed milk.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's for what? I don't get cappuccinos. I don't do lattes. Yeah,
that's fair.
it's not for me.
It's right for the picking, but only iced.
What's the difference between ice and hot?
The temperature.
Well, I mean, clearly, but like, does it change the taste?
Traditionally, that's the.
Right.
I have no-
Thank you for clearing that part up.
Well, if you got a hot one, it would be with steamed milk, but the iced one would not be.
Oh, it's
It would
just
just
like
be
milk.
Milk.
Okay. Soy milk?
That is what I prefer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it wasn't regular milk. Anyway.
No, that's gross.
Sure. I don't know. What did you say? Green
What?
tea matcha.
Lattes. Yeah.
See,
Okay.
I feel like if you have to say your coffee order in more than 3 words or 2 words, it's just you've done too
Mine's
much.
pretty long.
Because like that's what you want, but then you want it a very specific way, and then 10 minutes later,
Yep,
they're
then you
making your
gotta
drink.
pick a
Are you one of
size
those?
and-
Oh, what? That
Like
I.
you have to like say your order in 2 breaths.
Oh,
to
I just
the
always
barista.
just say drip coffee. That's
Yeah,
it.
okay.
I never have to say
Normal
an
human
order.
being.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate that.
I'm going to bring a green tea matcha latte on one of the next episodes. And
All right.
Drink it here.
Got it. Enjoy. All right, this is the last one for me. Justin, right for the picking, leave it on the tree. Settlers of Catan.
Right for the picking, but I'm not a huge fan of it. Like I'll play it.
Okay.
It's fun.
Sure.
But yeah,
Well, you mentioned Halo. So are you more a video gamer than a board gamer?
not at all.
Okay.
I stopped playing video games when I got married,
Oh,
and it was a
Bummer.
good choice.
you said it was a good choice?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh,
but
Okay.
I like board games.
all right.
Yeah.
I've never played it. So it's on the tree.
Okay. Sure.
I don't know.
Of board games, it's like one of the ones I would play. I mean, I say I would play. I play most. I love board games. I like competing with people. I am perhaps maybe the worst when it comes to
That's fair.
a friendly game. I don't know what somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. That's how I play. Anyway.
My wife always complains about Catan because there's always one person who is just in the total bottom from the from the first round,
Yeah.
and it's just they're condemned to just help the other people win by just sitting in the corner and getting cut off at everything they try to do.
Yeah, we do it. We'll do it different ways. We'll do like the traditional way where you try to like spread out the numbers, but then we'll also we'll place our first pieces without revealing the numbers, and then once everybody places, then you turn the numbers over, and sometimes it
Interesting.
works out, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it looks like it works out, and then the entire game 10 gets rolled. How does that happen? Anyway, yeah. So I like when there's a little bit of chance and then skill, and you got to negotiate. It's got a little bit of everything. That's why I like it.
I'll have to try it sometime.
Yeah. If you and Paul ever come over to our house, I guarantee Dorothy's gonna try to talk you into playing board games. So, yeah,
All right. We'll do it.
we'll do it first. It'll be interesting. I'd be very interested to see how you play a game.
Let's do it on the podcast. Bad idea. It probably wouldn't be very interesting.
Yeah, I don't see. This is the thing. Yeah, I don't know if I need to broadcast that part because I don't know how to not play.
Maybe we'd have to
we'd
have to censor some things.
No. You don't have to censor people. You just
moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's got, like I said, somebody's got to win.
Someone's got to be the loser.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, last one. Right for the picking or leave it on the tree. Roller coasters.
Oh, very right.
Okay.
Yeah, I love roller coasters. It's been a long time since I went on, a good roller coaster. And I've heard this is our first time in the Midwest, and there are some really good roller coasters.
We're really close to
Six Flags.
Yeah.
Our Six Flags is okay as far as not only Six Flags, but like amusement parks go. It's like if you've never been there before, there's some good rides.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but when you grow up here and it's what you got, it gets old.
And also Cedar Point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we're
that's in
you've
Ohio.
You've entered a different stratosphere, but it is not far from here. Cedar Point is exceptional.
Yeah, I definitely am not going to leave seminary without going to Cedar Point.
You should do it.
That's where I grew up going, but it is leave it on the tree for me.
Okay.
Not
Afraid
a fan.
of heights?
No, it's like that dropping
the
feeling.
inertial feeling.
Yeah, it's not the heights part. It's the Nope.
So it is right for the picking for me. I do love roller coasters, although as I age, the inertia and like the day drags, and I'm like, I can't get over it. But I like if I'm doing something, a new one. So that's like going to the Six Flags here. I'm never like, yeah, let's go do it. Although now my kids are all big enough and they all love roller coasters. So doing it again with them would offer something different. But yeah, roller coasters are fun. And Cedar Point, if you're going to go to Six Flags first before you go to Cedar Point. 'Cause if you go to Cedar Point first, Six Flags, it just won't be, it won't be fun. Their old roller coasters are better than most of our newer ones. But yeah, well, cool. Justin, before we end the episode, we always like to ask our guests, if you had one piece of advice for anybody who was thinking about church work, whether it be becoming a pastor or a deaconess or even a teacher, DC or something along those lines, what would that one piece of advice be?
Believe and trust that God, he has plans for you, and that he knows exactly the things that the gifts that he's given you. And I didn't mention this earlier, but whenever we were thinking about seminary, I got the idea and I started I was talking to Grace about it and was just thinking about it for a long time and praying, and so there's someone at our church in Korea who Matt Wasman, he's the head of missions for in Asia, and they're great. We just went to church with them all the time, but we'd never gotten together before. And so I just asked him if it was okay if we could get together for coffee sometime. And I was going to ask him if it would be possible, and what he thought about me going to seminary. And so I was just praying a lot and like, Lord, let this conversation go well. And, whatever happens, please, work it out. And so I got together with him, and we sat down after getting our coffees. And before I could say anything, he was like, "So Justin, have you ever thought about ministry? Like, look at that." And so God knows what he's doing, and just trust him. And the whole seminary process has been, I didn't mention, but the admissions office has been so helpful. And I guess I heard that they were talking about us a lot, but
It's a special case, that's all.
They really did everything that possible in order to get us here and to make it as smooth as possible. And we're so thankful. So, yeah, God's got you. And also the admissions office is pretty great too. So,
amen. Yeah. We appreciate that plug. Well, Justin, it's been great having you on. And like I said, maybe sometime in the future, we can learn more about this ship. But if you're listening, first and foremost, thank you for joining us today and being a part of this conversation. And if you yourself are thinking that maybe being a pastor, teacher, deaconess, DCE is something for you, as always, don't think too long. Fill out a request for information. The link is in the description of our YouTube channel so that we can know who you are. And so we can reach out and talk to you, help you through that discernment process, because none of us is meant to go through it alone. We're the body of Christ, and God has put this task before us all. And so reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation with you. But if you know that you're not meant for that, but you've always looked at somebody across the pew and thought maybe they'd be a great pastor or another type of church worker, make sure that you tell them, because you could be that person that encourages them to take that next step, that extra brotherly or sisterly love of encouragement to pursue what God has laid out for them in their future. Make sure you tell them. Reach out to the seminary, fill out a request for information so that we can speak to them as well. And as always, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe. We Under the Fig Tree podcast now has a new YouTube channel, Under the Fig Tree podcast at Concordia
Sem.
Sorry.
Under the Fig Tree.
Concordia Sem. Under the Fig Tree. So subscribe to the new page, like it, share it, and we'll see you next time. Under the Fig Tree. Take care.